It's not so much don't bring the brass knuckles. Obviously you're going to have a piece in there, but what's going to be the big issue is that this is a kid who does not appear to have a whole lot of tools in his box in terms of getting into a group of kids and being accepted by this group of kids. So the FBA is to identify that this seems to be this, that peers are playing this key role. He's trying to gain peer acceptance, peer affiliation, friendship.
He's trying to gain friends in a gang.
Okay.
That's his goal.
And the issue may be that, and it depends on the kid, it may not be that I necessarily want to be in the gang. The gang is just an easy group of friends to join. I really want to be accepted by somebody. All right? So part of what the issue becomes is how do I put things in place then that allow this kid a process and the opportunities to learn the skills and engage with kids that aren't gang affiliated to get the social affiliation that he needs. And that's what your BIP's going to be all about. And I don't care if it only happened one time. That's a very appropriate thing to have a BIP for. I mean, it's kind of like this kid had to set up quite a red flag just to let people know, pay attention to me, I got a problem here.
That kid, it happens. He's had a BIP since he was in 4th grade. I mean, we just keep updating and changing it. But for like a one-time offense, I struggle with that.
Mm-hmm. But the offense is only a symptom of what it sounds like, at least in the process of that. If it's a serious enough behavior that leads to a 10-day suspension, then the assumption is that this is a symptom of something that's pretty significant for this kid. And the FBA is to get at what is, I may not anticipate I'll ever see this behavior again. I don't care. This behavior was only a symptom of an underlying issue that this kid needs to have addressed.
We have a lot of those.
Make sense? Okay. Other issues, questions, comments? Yes?
I also want to just go in that when they go to another school, I mean, we act like they're going to, nowhere like
the moon.
The school they're going to is going to look at your paperwork, if your district has provided it, and that should be the basis for where they begin, so that they don't have to start at square one and make all the same mistakes all over again. So it's very important that you do the paperwork as accurately as possible and follows up with this child.
And you will, if you're doing this right, you will have identified some triggers, you will have identified some strategies that may be effective. All these things should follow the kid. So that they know, in some cases it might even just be the information of what didn't work, all right, in the past. That's important information to have so that we when we start to build the plan, and oftentimes we're talking about kids who are moving to a less, the way schools work. I go from elementary to middle school. Now I've got more teachers. I move from middle school to high school. So it usually is moving to a looser process. So anything we can do to help them tighten stuff up right from the jump to understand this child better, that's going to help.
Just one piece about, because we've had a situation with someone coming to us who had been expelled probably because he brought it up. But do you put those situations that are, discipline related in our functional map? Because, all that discipline record doesn't really go along. I mean, that's what I thought. And so I'm always leery about it because now it's like the kid has this big, anybody who sees that is like, oh my God, like they're at risk of every day. I mean, it's just.
It's a damned if you do and damned if you don't. If you don't put it in there and all of a sudden the kid does something and somebody gets hurt, the question is going to be why. He brought a gun and you didn't think that was significant?
But then why doesn't that also move from school to school?
Well,
am I correct, or does somebody else know, does that discipline information not get pushed along to school? Because I know like in our district, school to school, it doesn't.
It does in ours.
It doesn't.
Yeah, suspensions and expulsions doesn't stay in the permanent record?
We're in the junior high building. The kids that are coming from the 5-6, their discipline doesn't come with them. I mean, we might kind of know or hear things, but I mean, does it specifically get sent? No. Or is it in their file if kids transfer somewhere else? That doesn't go with them.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I'd say you're probably an outlier there. I don't know of many schools that's true.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, what it was a case where we're a junior high building, but when the student was like in 3rd grade in another district, he was expelled for a weapon. Didn't say what the weapon was. And somehow, even with the Guns Free Act or whatever, he was able to register in another district somewhere else in Illinois without that clearance page. So when he eventually transferred to us in like 6th or 7th grade, the only reason we were aware about it was because of the teacher's anecdotal note.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, yeah, there's lots of ways I can dodge my records. You know, if I bounce around to enough schools and different kinds of things, I can count on the fact that the schools are going to be less than clear about sending materials. And so I could probably lose some of that stuff, but it doesn't, but that's different than that we purposefully don't include that information as we transfer kids up the line.
But honestly, we work in a high school, and when kids come to us from other schools, we don't get a lot of paperwork from other schools.
Mm-hmm. That oftentimes you'll see that because Illinois has a lot of non-unified school districts, that sometimes districts will make policies about what becomes part of the child's permanent file that gets transferred and what parts don't. And sometimes you can get caught up a little bit depending on what you're looking for in that material.
Yeah, you really need to involve the parents to go have them get the records and bring it, because there's also just a jealousy of we lost a student, we didn't want them to go to the other school. And we did all that work, we're not going to tell you what all we did, because now you're going to, you know, really there is that sort of approach, unfortunately.
I think there's also a fear of that. I mean, how many of you would like to have all of your discipline records scrutinized? I think also schools feel somewhat, this is not, I don't want to be held accountable for what we may have done or not done. So I'm going to try to keep this as, you know, summarized as I possibly can, because they don't need all the gory details.
I think we have more luck just in our district because we got a lot of new students. We would be less likely to accept the records coming from parents unless they're voluntarily. We have more of a problem with parents not
filtering through
enough of the information that, you know, they try to, you know, luckily the law's different now, but not bringing special ed records, so on and so forth. But we really kind of dog the old district, you know what I mean, as much as we possibly can to get all the information as possible. I mean, it's really a matter of how much effort you put into getting those records.
We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and we're going to look at a case. And this case is a kind of a composite case of about 3 different kids that I've worked with in the past whose names have been changed to protect the guilty. But one of the things you're going to read is that this parent is a pretty savvy parent. And what you don't want to do, I mean, if you really want to get underneath the skin of a school district, you don't file a due process. You write an ISBE complaint.
ISBE complaint?
Yes. Because now the school district has to spend a huge amount of money responding to this complaint. The parent doesn't have to pay a cent, right? I don't have to have a lawyer. I don't have to do anything else. I just have to say, you know, you did something wrong. Now, you know, and you have to now tell me how you didn't do it wrong, right? And what we've got is a situation that a parent did this multiple times. And one of the issues that they claimed was falsification of information in the child's record. That you said he did things he didn't do. So now they had to go through all of his records and talk about where they got support to say the things that are in his records in terms of his behaviors and stuff. Like, you know how we have all these little anecdotal notes about the kid did this, and then he did this, and then he did this? I want you to show me where you got that information. How did you... Now, think about the time you would put in to going through 5th, 6th, 7th graders' records and try to respond to every little anecdotal note about his behavior in that record. How many hours do you think you'd put into it? Okay, so you know, so sometimes that becomes that you know that can be this. What this mother didn't want is this student moved to a new school, didn't want all of these little kind of innuendos about what her child had done that haven't been shown to be true. She frankly didn't believe all this stuff happened. And so you show me where it's true.
Well, how did she find out there were stuff in the teacher's files?
Well, it's in the student's records. So like in, you know, yeah. And so they had to go through that, and then, you know, and think just in your mind, you know, as you take your break, take some kid who's a real challenge to you and think about how much stuff do you think you might have to strike out of his record if you actually had to go back and document where you got the basis for that. You know? All right, let's take a break. We'll take about 10 minutes.